Artificers are one of the most versatile classes in D&D. Their capability of being any combination of competent spellcaster, frontline combatant, and impressive support role is all thanks to the various features Artificers and the subclasses have access to. So today, we'll be going over the best features Artificers have, though we'll be ignoring some of the more commonplace features that a lot of classes have, like spellcasting or having the extra attack granted by the Battlesmith and Armor subclasses. And at number 10, we have the Artillerist Subclass Spells. This is a bit of an unusual one, but every Artificer subclass gets additional spells they always have access to once they hit the appropriate level. These spells are a big deal for Artificers, as their default spell list is relatively small compared to other spellcasting classes. Of all 4 current subclasses, the Artillerist spell list is the highest power of the group. While the Alchemist comes close with its great access to some of the best healing spells, the Artillerist list is like a rundown of some of the strongest and most commonly taken spells in the game. At 3rd level, they get Shield and Thunderwave, 2 all-star first level spells in their own right. Shield is a must-have for basically any spellcaster who's ever in danger of getting attacked, and the Artificer does not naturally have access to it. While Thunderwave is a great combination AoE and control spell with its good damage type and pushing capability. Next, at 5th level, they gain Scorching Ray and Shatter, arguably the 2 best 2nd level damage spells in the game for single target and AoE damage respectively. And of course, upon hitting level 9 and gaining the high impact 3rd level spells, Artillerists get the game-warping spell Fireball. So much has been said about Fireball that it hardly bears repeating, but it gives the Artillerists as much spellcasting firepower as any other full spellcaster. The other spell is Wind Wall, more of an interesting utility option than a huge power spike, but not bad in its own right. Next, for the 4th level spells, they get Ice Storm and Wall of Fire. Again, exceptional spells for battlefield control and damage, and staples of any class that can learn them. Finally, when they get their highest level spells at 5th level, they get Cone of Cold and Wall of Force. Cone of Cold is the 5th level counterpart of Fireball, being just one of the best AoE damage spells in the game, and complementing Fireball with a different damage type. And Wall of Force is on the short list of the absolute best control spells, and overall best spells in the game for its unconditional battlefield control and versatility. All of the Artificer subclasses get a solid additional spell list, but nothing really has the punch or impact to compete with the Artillerist, earning it a spot on this list. Moving on to the feature that all Artificers get, at number 9, we have Flash of Genius. This is a class feature Artificers get at 7th level that lets them use a reaction to add their intelligence modifier to any ability check or saving throw on themselves or another creature within 30 feet of them. The Artificer can do this as many times per long rest as their intelligence modifier, so usually between 3 and 5 times per day. Flash of Genius is very indicative of what the Artificer class excels at as a class, top tier utility. While Flash of Genius does lack the sort of combat excellence of a spell like Bless that also affects attack rolls, its capability to help out ability checks makes it fairly uniquely useful outside of combat scenarios. Usually, the help action, or a spell like Enhance Ability, is all the aid a team can use to assist a party member taking on a critical ability check. But the Artificer's ability to throw a potential +4 or +5 at any roll, multiple times a day, makes it so that even when your party is engaging in something they're bad at, the mere presence of an Artificer can make anyone good at nearly anything. Your Paladin dumped Dexterity and is wearing heavy armor, so those stealth checks are becoming a bother? Flash of Genius it. Your Rogue's disabling a trap that could kill you all even if you're really good at it and you want to ensure the success? Flash of Genius. You need to decipher this arcane device that could determine the fate of you and the party in the world? Well, that sounds like a great time for Flash of Genius. It's also great that it has combat function. Ability checks do pop up in combat on occasion, but nowhere near as much as saving throws. And saving throws are often some of the most critical roles in combat. A frontline combatant like a fighter or barbarian is usually very susceptible to possession or mind control effects due to their weak mental ability modifiers. And preventing the bad guy from turning your team's best source of damage against you with a quick bonus to the saving throw can be invaluable. Maybe most importantly, this also applies to death saving throws, and preventing an ally from failing the last one is literally the difference between life and death. Flat bonuses to these rolls are hard to come by. Access to this feature really changes the landscape of how a party functions, and is one of the defining traits of mid-game and later Artificers. Up next at number 8, we have the Magic Item Adept. This is a feature obtained at level 10 and allows an Artificer to attune 1 more magic item, going up to 4 total. It also has a small quality of life improvement, letting the Artificer craft common or uncommon magic items at half the gold cost, and a quarter of the time required. Magic Item Adept might be the feature every other class is most envious of from the Artificer, even if it isn't the most powerful. By the time players hit level 10 in a typical campaign, there's usually some spare magic items that no one can benefit from due to them using up all their attunements. This is even more common with an Artificer in the party capable of creating magic items for themselves in the party. The 3 attunement limit is one of the most critical parts of balance in 5th edition. One of the major ways characters could get out of hand in prior editions was just stacking all sorts of complicated and powerful magical artifacts, restricted only by body parts, rather than 5th edition scaling it back to just 3 attunement items. And generally slapping attunement on anything particularly powerful. Artificers bring back just a tiny bit of this potentially game-breaking concept. Out of all the Artificer features, this technically has the highest potential to be broken just because there are some incredibly powerful magic items in the game, and stacking a 4th artifact level item is going to outdo any singular feature most classes can get. Most of the time though, this feature is used to allow the Artificer to benefit from their own, more reasonable creations. Even if the Artificer isn't running around decked out in legendary gear in each attunement slot, the floor for this kind of ability is always going to be pretty high, even if you just limit it to what the Artificer innately has access to from their own creations. It's a great feature that really emphasizes the Artificer's superior usage of magical gear. And speaking of magical gear, at number 7 on this list, we have the Helm of Awareness. This is one of the options for the Artificer's Infusion feature, which lets them enchant mundane items and turn them magical. But since they're mostly distinct, we'll be treating each infusion as its own potential feature. Available at level 10, the Helm of Awareness infusion allows the Artificer to enchant a helmet, turning it into an attunement item that gives the attuned creature advantage on initiative rolls and immunity to being surprised, so long as they're not incapacitated when the surprise happens. The Helm of Awareness affects the most important combat mechanic in the game, initiative. Buffing initiative is difficult, requiring expensive boosts to dexterity or foregoing your stat increase to take a feat like alert. And that's basically what this item simulates, having the alert feat. Avoiding losing a turn to surprise is a nifty benefit, especially if your dungeon master is prone to launch ambushes on you. But the real meat of this infusion is the advantage on initiative rolls. The ability to more consistently go first is one of the most critical factors in every combat. Getting a full turn of actions off before an enemy can act can mean dropping a powerful spell that can debilitate a specific enemy, or dropping a huge AoE spell that can handle entire enemy ranks in one fell swoop before they could tear into your party. Or something as simple as reposition yourself so you don't get swarmed and taken down in the first round yourself if you start the fight out of position and in danger. Seeing as the Artificer is an intelligence-based class, getting good initiative rolls can be pretty difficult, and the Helm of Awareness is accessible to not just the Artificer, but to your entire party, since nothing stops you from blending it out. Does your team have a Gloomstalker Ranger or Assassin Rogue who could potentially one-shot a deadly foe if you can nearly guarantee they get the first turn in combat? Well, if you're feeling generous, then giving them this helm could swing any number of combats in your favor. It doesn't really matter who you are, whether you're a frontline combatant, a spellsinging caster, or a pure support role. Every version of the Artificer and every creature in the game can benefit from a huge boost to initiative. And with the number 6 on this list, we have the Enhanced Defense infusion. This infusion lets you enchant any mundane armor or shield and increase its armor class by 1, or 2 if you're 10th level or higher. Much like initiative, there's a combat mechanic that every character can benefit from, more armor class. The most common way damage is dealt in D&D is through attacks being thrown, and AC is the first and most effective line of defense against it. This is especially important for Artificer subclasses like the Battlesmith or Armorer, who are designed to function really up close and personal with classes but have to settle for middling D8 hit dices, giving them far less hit points on average than your typical frontline classers like the D12 Barbarian or the D10 Martial classes. But the Artificer's main trick is to forgo a huge hit point stat and instead have access to incredible armor class tanking abilities. After all, who needs 10 more hit points when you can have 2 more AC and just not get hit? A super important thing about this infusion is that it doesn't require attunement to use, unlike other armor boosted infusions like the Repulsion shield, a solid infusion in its own right, deserving an honorable mention. It gives 1 AC to a shield and grants a reactive 15-foot push on an enemy who hits the wielder. But it doesn't ever get that sweet second AC that Enhanced Defense gets at level 10. And the attunement slot is incredibly valuable for Artificers who have lots of gear attunement options to choose from their own infusions, like the aforementioned Helm of Awareness. And even if you did like the Repulsion shield, you can still have that for your shield and throw an Enhanced Defense on your armor, stacking multiple infusions for more armor class. And that's really what makes armor class perform. The more bonuses you can stack on it, the more you're eliminating getting hit by incidental hits from weaker enemies and minimize the high power hits of strong enemies. Much like any infusion, this is also a great choice if you're feeling like lending out some of your power to your allies. The less frontline subclasses like the Alchemist and Artillerist can get some great use out of this feature by improving their lacking AC or even by lending out those armor class buffs to their team's tank. I'm sure any Paladin player would be delighted to hear the Artificer can dole out an always active, no cost +2 AC for them. It's hard to go wrong with Enhanced Defense. It's one of the absolute best options any Artificer can take. And at number 5, we have the Eldritch Cannon. This is the core subclass feature of the Artillerist, attained at level 3 when you choose a subclass. While there's a lot of specific details to the Eldritch Cannon, the basics of the feature is that you can use an action to make a tiny cannon that you can carry around in one hand, or a standalone small-sized cannon that takes up its own space and can potentially move with little legs if you wish it to. It gets its own AC and an HP that starts 5 times your Artificer level. You're limited to one cannon, and it has 3 potential forms. A flamethrower that shoots a 15-foot cone and deals 2d8 fire damage with a dexterity save, a force ballista that makes a ranged spell attack up to 120 feet away for 2d8 force damage that also pushes the target 5 feet away on hit, and the Protector, which can emit a recurring burst of temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus your intelligence modifier to you and every creature you choose within 10 feet. All of these can be active with a bonus action on your turn. There's a lot to unpack with this item, but it's really the backbone of the Artillerist, a subclass designed around flinging damage every which way like a backup evocation wizard. The Eldritch Cannon ability to give you the near equivalent of a free Burning Hands every turn is really strong and efficient in the early game as a source of damage output. The Force Ballista gives a ton of effective range and battlefield control with the unresistible movement, and maybe the strongest of all, the Protector is a constant source of free hit points over the course of a battle if your team can stay within 10 feet of it. Something many players are very well practiced at thanks to the years of hunting around a 10-foot paladin aura for a free saving throw buff. This feature even scales, getting an extra d8 to the damage versions at level 9, and being able to self-destruct with an action for 3d8 damage in a 20-foot radius. Eldritch Cannon isn't a game-breaking feature, though the Protector version can trivialize plenty of fights by just pumping out an absurd amount of effective HP that really dominates the early game. But it's an outstanding feature with both versatility, power, and a great action economy all in its wheelhouse. The already mentioned Artillerist spell list makes them an effective nuker in their own right, and being able to pile on the damage with your bonus action without spending more spell slots really lets the subclass live up to its name. And at number 4 in this list, we have the Steel Defender. This is a primary subclass feature of the Battlesmith. Steel Defenders grant you a companion who is similar to your familiar, but given relevant combat stats like 15 AC and hit point values, which scales with your level and intelligence modifier. It even gets a great 40-foot movement speed. It has a self-repair feature you can use 3 times a day to heal for 2d8 plus your proficiency bonus, and it has a 1d8 plus your proficiency bonus melee attack. It even has a reaction called Deflect Attack, imposing disadvantage on attack roll within 5 feet of it if it attacks someone besides the Steel Defender. And that's usually you. It also comes with great utility features like being unable to be surprised, being immune to poison and charm effects, and a 60 feet of dark vision, making it an incredible scout when paired with its 40-foot movement speed. This little guy acts on your initiative immediately after you take your turn, though you do get to use your bonus action to make it do something besides dodge unless you're incapacitated. The Steel Defender is functionally a souped-up version of the Homunculus infusion, which is available to every Artificer. It's more of a frontline companion though, which suits the Battlesmith very well as the subclass comes with other great features for letting an Artificer fight in melee, like Battle Ready giving you martial weapon proficiency and the ability to use your intelligence for attack and damage rolls. Homunculus on its own is a potential honorable mention for this list because of just how good familiar style companions are with help actions, scouted, and eating up attacks that might have gone to another player. But Steel Defender outclasses it in so many ways that it would have been redundant. Find Familiar is on the short list of best and most versatile spells in the game, and the Battlesmith comes equipped with a significantly better version of it that actually works as a threat in battle, more comparable to a Pact of the Chain Warlock's familiar options, but scaling even better as you level up. You can even heal it for free in between battles with the Mending cantrip, which heals it for 2d6 damage, making it a bit of a free hit point sink so long as it isn't dying. It's one of the best options in the game for a pet or companion style of gameplay, and easily one of the most useful features available to an Artificer. Next up on this list at number 3, we have the Spell Storing item. This is an 11th level feature for all Artificers that allows you to store any 1st or 2nd level Artificer spell with 1 action cast time into a weapon or any item the Artificer could use as a spellcasting focus. The item grants the holder the ability to produce a spell using an action, and the spell still benefits from the Artificer spellcasting bonus, though the user in question does still need to concentrate if it's a concentration spell. The item can evoke this effect up to twice your intelligence modifier or until you make a new spell storing item, rendering the previous one inert. A spell storing item is maybe the single best tool available to the Artificer to benefit their allies. Looking at it for just the Artificer, it basically gives nearly unlimited free uses of key level 1 or 2 spells, as double your intelligence bonus at level 11th is usually 8 or 10 uses of the item. The main limitations on this are the low level options and the Artificer spell list itself, but that's not much of a limitation. 10 more castings of a 2nd level Cure Wounds, nearly unlimited invisibility, The sheer volume of spellcasting this allows can turn a previously niche spell like Enhance Ability into an Artificer basically being able to give anyone advantage on any check throughout the course of the day without hesitation. Imagine pairing that with Flash of Genius, and the Artificer can subsidize the entire party's skill checks for an entire campaign. Thanks to the ability to lend it to allies, it even lets you skirt some concentration rules. Your fighter isn't usually concentrated on anything, so being able to cast Enlarge on himself as much as he wants is an easier buff to damage. These options expand further when you get into the subclass spell list, getting great options like Flaming Sphere, Shadow, and Scorching Ray as offensive options, turning an Artillerist into someone who can fire off spells constantly, never worried about spell slots. Maybe even scarier is giving a tank like a Paladin or Fighter functionally unlimited uses of Mirror Image from an Armorer spell list. Even if your party doesn't have a great use for it, any Artificer could hand it off to the Homunculus or Still Defender, and suddenly you're casting 2 spells a turn, rapid fire style. There's nearly unlimited utility and power wrapped into this item just because of the good utility spells the Artificer comes with on top of the ability to give these spells to other players and classes who are generally bounced around either not having spells or having a limited number of spells. 10 free spells that anyone can use is a pretty preposterous feature no matter how you slice it. And at number 2 in this list, we have Arcane Armor. This is the subclass defining feature of the Armorer, a frontline tank-centric variant of the Artificer. It lets you apply your magic to any suit of armor you're wearing with your Smith's tools used in action. It removes the strength requirement of armor, meaning someone with a negative strength could use plate armor with no problem. It doubles as an arcane focus for Artificer Spells. If it has a helmet, it can retract and deploy it Iron Man style with a bonus action, and similarly can work as a prosthetic for any missing limbs. Finally, it bypasses the donning and doffing rules, letting you use an action to remove or equip the armor. This feature goes hand in hand with the armor model feature also obtained at level 3, which imbues the armor with a stealth-friendly mode with lightning-based range attacks or a close-range tank mode with thunder-based punches that force enemies to hit you or suffer disadvantage, while also giving reoccurring temporary hit points to increase tankiness. And, most importantly, lets your attack scale off of intelligence rather than strength or dexterity, much like the Battlesmith's Battle Ready feature. The main thing Armor has going for it compared to basically any spellcasting class is the ability to wear plate armor without having to invest in strength. Even without all of the powerful offensive and defensive capabilities of the armor model feature obtained at the same level, the ability to just get 18 AC at a starting point on a class with good spellcasting capability is an extreme level of value that few other features in the game can compete with. One of the Artificer's greatest strengths is stacking up armor class bonuses to become a sort of secondary tank. But the Armorer's ability to do this on top of plate armor makes the subclass one of the best AC tanks in the game. What's more, unlike any other spellcaster who might somehow get access to heavy armor, the Armorer's suit doubling as a spellcasting focus means this class is free to wield a shield, cast a spell, and even attack once you account for the armor model feature, all without having to worry about somatic components like many other classes. As mentioned with enhanced defense earlier in this list, stacking up AC is one of the most effective things that players can do for combat, and this is perhaps the best feature in the game at achieving that, especially combined with the other features the Artificer has to easily keep buffing the AC to astronomical levels. And finally, at number 1, we have the Replicate Magic item. This is another infusion, and like all the other infusions, it lets you create a magic item out of the mundane. The catch with Replicate Magic item is this one feature grants any Artificer access to an entire list of pre-established magic items, including all the common magic items in the game that aren't consumables like potions or scrolls. This feature is, without a doubt, the highest utility option of any class in the game. It's just an entire list of useful items you can tailor pick to suit your campaign. Early on at second level, the Artificer gets access to game-changing items like the Bag of Holding or Scenting Stones, completely trivializing in-game problems like carrying capacity and long-distance communication. Is your campaign about going on a huge dungeon crawl? Then just conjure up a Wand of Secrets and magically suss out all the hidden traps and secret doors your DM is going to throw at you. Does your poor human fighter constantly struggle with no dark vision every time night falls, or the party ventures into a cave or dungeon? Well, just have the Artificer whip them up some goggles of night. Aquatic campaign? Cap of water breathing. Want to sell infinite wine or mayonnaise? Well, you got an alchemy jug on your hand. And these are just the second level options granted when you can first feasibly take this feature. It's also an infusion you can take more than once, so as you level up you can supplement yourself or your party with more items focusing on what you need, like incredible stealth capabilities from the Boots of Elvenkind, easy access flight from a pair of winged boots, huge AC stacking capabilities thanks to being able to craft a ring of protection or a cloak of protection, something those AC stacking features from earlier in this list really benefit from. There are so many options that cover so many scenarios on this list, including some game-warping ones, like the attribute setting items like the Amulet of Health, Belt of Giant Strength, or Headband of Intellect that gives the wielder a high constitution, strength, or intelligence respectively. These on their own can represent 4 feats worth of strength on the right character, and all it costs is 1 use of your infusion. Many of these items individually are some of the best things an Artificer can bring to a party. All of them together, accessible on the same feature, makes it far and away the best tool every Artificer has access to. Alright, and that's the list. Are there any of the Artificer features you think we should have mentioned on this list? Or do you have any ideas for other topics like this you'd like to see? If so, leave those suggestions down in the comments below.